All right, so I wanted to make a couple videos about our surface area and volume ideas. And so let's start with this one where we're just focused on our good friend, the cylinder. And so here's a quick drawing of what a cylinder looks like. It's basically just circles stacked all on top of each other like this, a bunch of different circles all on top of each other. And the whole idea when you're finding volume is how many little cubes would it take to fill up the whole shape. And we start with our idea is, well, what if we squished the cylinder into a box? So what if we, instead of having the bottom of it be a circle, what if we had the bottom of the cylinder being a box, and we made it exactly the same size, so that this box that I'm drawing extremely well, that's a terrible looking box. What if this box was exactly the same volume as the cylinder? If we poured water from one to the other, they'd perfectly fill each other up. Well, we know that the volume of the rectangular prism, the volume of the box, is just length times width times height. And this is something that we can visualize. We can think about little cubes filling up the prism, and it just takes a bunch of little cubes. You can really just imagine drawing all these little cubes in there. Well, L of them fit across, and then W of them fit this direction, and then you can stack H rows of them going up like this. And you can imagine, despite my terrible drawing, how that will fill up the entire box. 11 by W gives you the base row, and then times H gives you the volume. I'm going to write this formula slightly differently. I'm going to just say it's the base area multiplied by the height. And if we use that idea, then we don't have to specifically look at a box. We could have different shapes. It could be a triangle on the bottom. We just find out how many boxes fill up the triangle base and then multiply by the height. It could even be the shape that we started this video with, which is the cylinder. And so if you look back at the cylinder, what we need to think about is how many boxes would it take to make a single layer on the bottom, and then we can just multiply that by H and just keep stacking boxes up just like we did with the prism. Okay, so it's the same sort of idea. So the volume of a cylinder, then, all we need to figure out is the base area. So the base area is just going to be pi times the radius squared, like that. And so the volume of a cylinder is just pi radius squared, pi times radius squared, multiplied by the height. You could use a lowercase h, use uppercase h, I don't really care. The idea is that you're making one layer at the bottom, pi r squared, and you're stacking those up on top of each other. Now, the surface area, I think, is a little bit more interesting. If you take a piece of paper, I've got several pieces of paper. Okay. If you take a piece of paper like this, you can make it into a cylinder just by rotating it, just by wrapping it, into making a little bit of a tube. There we go. So we've got a tube here, like this, and you can see this is the shape of a cylinder. So when you have a cylinder, what I ask you to do is to unwrap it, and then you have what shape? A rectangle. So if we try to think about a cylinder's surface area, we just unwrap it to make a rectangle, and then just have to remember that there was, of course, a top circle and a bottom circle also on that. So if I take my cylinder and I unwrap it, I get a rectangle like this, and then there is a top circle and a bottom circle. And so when I think about what the surface area of a cylinder is, it's going to be the rectangle plus 2 circles. So the area of the circles we already know, it's pi r squared. We just talked about that. So I know I'm going to add 2 pi r squared because that's 2 circles. But the rectangle wraps perfectly around the circle. And the way that we measure the distance around the circle is the circumference. That's 2 pi r. So now I know that the width of this rectangle here to here is 2 pi r. The rectangle also was exactly as tall as the cylinder is. So I have the rectangle is 2 pi r times h. And that's the surface area formula for a cylinder. If you want, you can write it in a slightly different form. If this is easier for you, you can use this one, 2 pi r times h plus r. So if you like that version more, go ahead and go with that. If you want to use the version here that keeps them separate, where it's the rectangle plus 2 circles, you can go with that. And over here is the volume of the cylinder. So those are some of the formulas that we will be working with where we're doing our 3D surface area and volume. So please comment, ask questions if anything was confusing, unless your question is, why are your drawings so bad?